Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Racing Challenge. J.R. Gregory here on the call. Beside me in the commentary booth, as always, my partner, Racing Ron Mons, and our friend and colleague in the production carrier, Joshua Wilkie. He's going to be pushing your buttons and spinning your knobs today as we enjoy Week 10 of the Radical Racing Challenge. As you can see from the screen here, we are at Mount Panorama outside Bathurst, Australia, and this one has been circled on my calendar ever since the calendar came out. Bathurst is a fantastic track, very challenging and very well suited to the power, grip, and fun of driving these Radicals. And yes, we are in the Radical SR10 as the start of today's show. 425 horsepower, 725 kilos, no traction control, no ABS, no nannies whatsoever. And folks, we are broadcasting this race of a public server. This is not a top secret Radical Racing Club or a private league. This is the top split of the Radical Racing Challenge server. Excuse me, at our normal time slot of 2100 GMT. What that means is if you want to come out here and give these Radicals a spin and appear on Apex Racing TV, there's nothing stopping you. Buy one, throw down some laps. I guarantee that you will enjoy it and that mastering this car will make you better at practically any other car that you drive. We are in Week 10, only 2 weeks remaining. Next week we will be at Rennsport, another fantastic track for these cars, and of course the season finale at the Green Hell Nordschleife itself. So Bathurst, 85-year history. This is technically a street circuit. You are watching these Radicals navigate public roads going over Skyline Boulevard and Mount Panorama. There are some actual residences here on Mount Panorama that can only be reached by driving on the racetrack. So when I get that lottery win, you can look for my address to be on Skyline Drive. Can you imagine that ride home from work every day? And current configuration, 23 turns, 3.8 miles or 6.2 kilometers, an elevation change of about 174 meters, 571 feet, very similar to Laguna Seca stateside, but for some reason Mount Panorama, that elevation change seems much more dramatic. This course is, of course, home to the Australian Supercars, a yearly 12-hour endurance race. And Ron, in some ways, this track is really well suited to these Radicals. In other ways, can create some problems. Particularly, there's a big bump in Quarry Corner that seems to upset these cars. Getting the car woed down into that Falcon left-hander there at Forest Elbow can cause some trouble. So what do you think we're going to see here out of these Radical drivers today?
Well, I think with a very quirky car and a very quirky track, there's definitely some features that these drivers are going to have to try and wrestle throughout this race. I talked about it many times on the broadcast we had here at this track last season. This curb coming out of this final corner here is like, I called it the shark tooth curb. It was always, I probably spun out on that curb or got myself beached on that curb probably about 10 times in the practice laps that we've done here. So it's a very tricky corner to get right. You don't want to run too wide. Turn 1 hell corner is also hellish to get right as well, because you have to really focus on that exit to try and get a great run going down that first long straightaway of this lap. And this is the longest straightaway on the track, the Conrad straightaway, which used to run all the way to the final corner. Then they add in this section here, the Chase, which is another interesting corner with these cars. The weight shift is always pretty important to try and get that balance correct and get on the brakes as hard as you can, scrub off the speed, and navigate through this fairly open chicane. So there's a lot of things with this car that kind of make this a little bit of a hard experience driving around this track. You've got the weight transfer that's a bit difficult, especially when trying to go through the downhill section towards the top end of the circuit, but you've also got those very long straight line blasts, which I think will lend itself very well to some good racing, especially with how good these cars can slipstream against each other.
Absolutely, and very much looking forward to this one. And my goodness, look at Philip Vandenherk. He has thrown down the gauntlet here in qualifying. Your pole sitter has beaten Walters in P2 by about a half a second. So we have not seen Vandenherk very much during our 2100 GMT broadcast this season, but he is a familiar name. Let's go ahead and run through your qualifying results here. And as I said, Philip Vandenherk up there in P1 with a blistering 158.705. Next to him, David Walters in the next row. We have Larson next to Phillips. Kyriakopoulos in P5 next to our season P1 winner right now, provisionally anyway, James Berry. P7 and 8 is going to be Caruso and Robert Woodward. Tuck and Gonzalez behind them in row 5. Manuela and Marcus, we'll call him there in P12. Bogdan there will be in P13. Chris Kraus in 14. Reagan and Aiken behind them. Warren and Iani in 17 and 18. Mauricio Nunez, sorry, his name's not showing up properly in our graphics today. Nunez and Murata, they are 19 and 20. Groots and Johnstone in 21 and 22. And taking up the back there, Carter Toole, not sure if he set a qualifying lap or not, but there is your qualifying grid. And we're looking at Philip Vandenherk now on the grid. He's going to have the inside entering turn 1 here from this standing start heading in to Hell's Corner. So as we wait for the timer to tick down here, we'll see how these cars can get away. There is no pace lap here. We are on ice cold tires and a pretty big grid here of 23 cars. And as you can see, the tail end of the grid is going to take the start from behind Murray's corner there in turn 23. So here we go. Lights are up, and we'll see how we get away here on the start. And right along with Vandenherk. Vandenherk gets smoked by Walters off the start. Wow, did not see that coming. I bet he didn't either. So it's going to be Walters from Vandenherk, Larson, Phillips, and Caruso entering turn 1 there. We got a little bit of side-by-side action heading up the hill towards Griffin's Bend. Pretty clean so far. A couple of cars still side-by-side. And my goodness, Ron, what do you think happened to Vandenherk there? It looked like he was pulling an anchor off that start.
Yeah, that was a really bad start from him. Not sure what happened there. And meanwhile, another driver having a really bad start is Kyriakopoulos, who had a little bit of a hip check there coming through Hell's Corner, and now he's dropped back like a rock. So terrible start there from Herc. He's lost that P1 position that he gained rightfully during qualifying. So it's very tricky to start these radicals. As you mentioned, these tires are ice cold at these starts, and with ice cold tires, these cars don't have a whole lot of grip. From our experience, these cars and these tires probably take a few laps to really warm up properly. Meanwhile, we've got some being and banging action farther down the order. But right now, up towards the front, you can see it spread out a little bit. So far, so clean. But the point that I was going to mention there before we saw some being and banging for the last place positions is that these cars, these tires probably take about 2 or 3 laps at all tracks really to warm up and get into an even operable operating temperature. Then probably by lap 4 or 5 is when you'll see these drivers really start to push it a little bit and get really confident. So right now, so far so clean, which at a track like this, which is still technically a street circuit despite having a extensively purpose-built feel, it's quite surprising that we had such a clean start.
Yeah, fantastic start by these drivers as, oh, it looks like Vanderherk has pulled ahead here on Conrad. Must have gotten the draft from Walters or gotten a better exit out of Forrest Ben, and Vandenherk has regained the P1 position as they as the field comes down the hill here for the first time, and we're approaching Murray's Corner. This is Ron's favorite here from a couple of practice sessions that we did. Very hard to get the car woed up and the power down there, but critical on this front straight to get a good run out of there. Early lap times a little high, of course, off of the standing start. We're going to expect those to plummet as we go, as we begin lap 2 of 12 here this afternoon, and Vandenherk is going to lead him up the hill. It's Vandenherk from Walters, from Larson, from Phillips, from Caruso, who has moved up to Woodward, also moved up to, as have Tuck and Gonzalez, and a big chunk of that is from Kiriakopoulos' struggles at the beginning, and something has happened to James Berry, has lost 13 positions and is now in P19. Not sure what happened here. There's a lot of action to keep track of here on the mountain, but Berry looks like he's actually parked it. Wow, that is a first. Berry winning his first overall here during our broadcast time slot last week, and has binned it and taken the tow, and he has retired, and that is unfortunate for James Berry, our season leader.
Yeah, I think there were a few incidents. We're going to replay here. Thank you, Josh. We had a few incidents farther down the field. There's James Berry. He's going through the top end of the circuit now, battling with Kiriakopoulos. And, oh, boy, that is a massive accident there for James Berry. Luckily, oh, I was bad. Oh, boy. Yee doggy gets turned into... he spins like a top there and gets hit multiple times there at the top of the hill. Battle with Kiriakopoulos going desperately wrong there for James Berry. I saw him at the bottom end of our live timing screen. I was wondering what happened, then I saw he disconnected, and now we're seeing this, just a little bit of contact there as they go through the top end of the circuit with Kiriakopoulos, and oh my god, he gets T-boned there at the top end of the hill and gets hit even more and even more contact there. A lot of drivers taken out of this race. I see Murata there taken out of contention as well. You can see the bottom drivers on our left-hand side of our screen with the graphics that we have here from SDK. You can see all the drivers that are in the pits and out of the race. So unfortunately, James Berry, who had triumph only 1 week ago at Jerez, sadly for him, his race ends very early here with a very dramatic accident.
Yeah, and strangely impatient for Berry. His driving has been marked by very smooth, careful, and patient driving, and not really sure what he was looking to do, poking his nose inside of Kiriakopoulos there, but holy cow, huge crash, and that is going to send him to the virtual medical facility without a doubt. He got creamed after caroming off of both walls there, and Berry with the retirement and that little pileup that we saw there has a number of cars way down off of their qualifying positions, and a number of people have moved up significantly, not the least of which is Dominic Johnstone, currently running in P12 after qualifying in 20 seconds. So a huge jumbling of the field there from that incident that was started by Berry. Here's the overhead look of it again. And Berry, here comes the T-bone, and bam, straight to the medical facility for Berry, and a couple other cars caught up in that one. And holy cow, those are the kind of crashes that we can see here in Bathurst. These Radical drivers normally pretty clean, but that one getting the better of Berry and a handful of other drivers on that occasion. Holy cow.
Caught me off guard at the end of the replay that we just showed you there, the helicopter view of that incident there involving Berry. We cut it off right before Kenji Murata T-boned the driver up at the top of the hill. I don't believe that was Berry. I believe Berry was off to the side, but Murata came in like a bullet and just T-boned him. And Murata is a name that I recognize here before. Any viewers, adamant viewers here on Apex, will recognize him from the ARL GT3 trophy. Another driver who we recognize from that series is Kettle Larson right now, who won in this car a few weeks ago. He has run some sporadic races here in the Radicals, and JR, you've said many times throughout this season, these cars are very difficult to drive, but they also are very rewarding, and it's a nice teaching car. It teaches you some good lessons of how to drive here in iRacing, and even the GT3 drivers that are running in the Pro and the Pro-Am category respectively between Murata and Larson right now running in these Radicals during the off-season here with the ARL GT3 trophy. I believe it might be coming back here here in the not too distant future. Fingers crossed, we'll see what happens in 2024. But Cal Larson, Murata, those are names I recognize, and Larson is running where he did a few weeks ago. He is running up towards the front, but this time he is running in second right now. He is trying to close that gap in with Philip Van den Hurk, who currently has the fastest lap of the race, as leading by a pretty wide margin right now, about 2 seconds separating those two drivers up towards the front. But Kettle Larson is a name that we recognize here on the Radicals, here on Apex Racing TV in general, and I think Kettle Larson, he might be trying to push his stuff here a little bit to try and get his second win of these Friday night broadcasts here on Apex.
Yeah, he'll have his work cut out for him, reeling in. Van den Hurk throwing down about a quarter of a second quicker lap that time around, and getting close to his qualifying time. And lap 4 of 12, we have lost 7 of these Radicals. Very unusual for this group. They usually drive really clean, but that's part of the nature of Bathurst. Once a car or two starts pinballing back and forth between those barriers, it can go from bad to worse, as it did here. 7 cars out. Really surprising here as we finish lap 4. And again, it's Van den Hurk from Larson, from Walters, from Caruso, from Phillips are your top 5. Woodward, Tuck, Kiriakopoulos, Gonzalez, and Ianni will make up your top 10. And my goodness, then it's Munoz, Johnstone, Toole, and Aiken are the only ones still breathing. Oh, no, there's a couple of cars a lap down. But my goodness, pretty messy one here as we start lap 5 of 12.
Yeah, fairly spread out, but with probably the largest field that we've seen throughout this season, certainly one of the largest fields that we've seen this season. It's not the most shocking development in the world. Meanwhile, that was a shocking save there from Walters as they came out of Hell Corner. That was a big slide there. He's been being challenged by Packy Caruso right behind him. We're riding on board with him, going down the straightaway here, trying to pick up that slipstream. And meanwhile, right behind them is Phillips, who's closed it on this battle right now. So we've got a 3-car battle here for the final podium position right now. Walters is driving that Radical of his all over the track to try and hold off Caruso behind. But I think Caruso is starting to get that challenge and starting to feel the pressure there from Phillips behind. You can see those cars. You can just cover them by a blanket at this stage right now. So you can see a very close battle right here for the final podium spot. This will definitely be one that we have to keep our eye on here, because I believe this is the closest battle we have right now on track, and I believe all 3 of them made contact there coming out of that turn. You can see a little bit of scraping there, and I know I definitely heard in my ears the distinct sound of metal rubbing against concrete. That's not really a sound you want to hear, whether you're a commentator or whether you're in a race car itself. So we're seeing some more puff of smoke there. A lot of these drivers being very flirtatious with these concrete barriers, but one thing these drivers have to keep in mind is the air sensitivity of these Radicals, whether it be just trying to have the grip, the aerodynamic grip, to get through these corners with enough confidence, or even just getting some weird aerodynamic damage whereby it feels like you're dragging a parachute going down this massively long Conrad straightaway. There's a lot of things these drivers have to keep in mind, but as a former driver myself, I can contest to you, racing drivers are not the smartest beings in the world. So right now they're smelling blood right now. Certainly Caruso is, as he gets a move done on Walters going into the chase there, but it's not over yet. Ooh, there's a little bit of being and banging there as they went through the chase there. Walters made contact with Caruso, then Caruso made contact with Walters, and then Phillips hit Walters as well. Just a lot of being and banging action right here for the final podium spot. So as they complete lap 6 here, we're about halfway through this race, already 10 minutes in. Packy Caruso is staking his claim on that P3, but this battle is definitely going to be one we have to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, Walters definitely took a significant hit on his right side. Not seeing any obvious damage there, but coming down the hill toward the chase, you definitely saw him losing to the car behind, losing that position, and he's lost another position. So Walters may be nursing some damage in that white Radical as this 3-car train has shuffled a bit. Now we've got Caruso from Phillips, from Walters, still very close. They're within about 0.6 of a second, this little train. But my feeling is if Walters did suffer some aero damage, as we discussed, by bouncing off that barrier, we'll see him drop back when we hit the Conrad straight here coming off the mountaintop.
I think Walters might be a little bit frustrated at this stage. I definitely heard some expletives being thrown, not directed towards anyone, but I definitely heard some curse words being thrown from Walters in the in-race chat here in iRacing. So definitely some tempers flaring at this stage as Caruso is starting to pull ahead of the 2 cars behind him. You can see Walters is now at the train, well, at the back of this train right now, and he might be at risk of losing more positions here. We just saw barely as he went into Forest Elbow there. There's another car farther behind, and that is the number 10 car driven by Robert Woodward. Just saw him barely in the back of shot there, that very striking BWT Old Racing Point tribute livery. So he is slowly closing in on this battle as well, so we might have this 3-car battle turn into a 4-car battle here, but now closed up quite a lot there. Walters did on Phillips right ahead of him as they went on the brakes going into the chase. It's not over yet. Walters is looking for the inside going into the final corner here. He backs to have it just a little bit. So right now Walters is struggling a little bit. He definitely lost some time with that failed attempt of an overtake there on Phillips. So right now these drivers are definitely breaking at their elbows a little bit and getting a little bit over aggressive. These drivers are seeing the red mist here, and meanwhile farther up you can see farther up the road the gap between Herc and Larson has pretty much remained exactly the same. They're still setting in some pretty good lap times. You can see Herc there setting a very good lap time at 1:48.7, so he is about a second faster than Larson's fastest lap. So Herc is definitely the man to beat right now, so we'll just have to wait and see how things develop in the not too distant future. But meanwhile we have this battle here with Woodward and Tuck. Tuck is closing in now on Woodward, so this is going to be a nice little battle, the nice sidecar of a battle that we have for the final podium spots right farther up the road.
Yeah, and Woodward and Tuck looking back, looking ahead at Walters, who's now at the tail end of that 3, 4, and 5 train with Caruso, Phillips, and Walters. And if they just kind of keep it cool here and not fight each other, they are going to be up involved in that situation in very short order. And it looks like Tuck got a little smooch of the wall there, the exact spot that Walters did. It's a very tough spot. It's kind of a test of bravery. You got to come pretty close to that wall to get an optimal lap. And it's very easy, just a little bit of a slip, a little bit of a bump on a curb, and drift a little wide and into that barrier. And you can see Tuck has left some of that purple translucent paint on the same wall back there where Walters got his little smooch. And here we are with Tuck looking forward at Woodward, and you can see that gap between Woodward and Walters coming down. It's about 2 seconds right now, and if those 3, Caruso, Phillips, and Walters, keep dicing as we've seen the last couple laps here, particularly in this section, Woodward and Tuck are going to reel them in. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, Vanden Herk gone 2.6 seconds ahead. He's maintaining that gap, trying to keep it clean, trying to keep it easy after that dominant qualifying position. He just needs to keep it clean here, and is looking good to get the win if he can keep it on the track as we begin lap 8 of 12.
Now, I've got to imagine in this race that mind games might play a little bit of a role. Meanwhile, we've got the battle between Phillips and Caruso. They're going side by side, coming down this straightaway here to kick off the lap. Coming between turns 1 and 2, this is very close there. They're very close to making contact there as they go down the straightaway, extremely close as they head into turn 2. But Caruso holds onto that position for now. I'm sure Phillips is definitely going to try and stake his claim on that fight. Meanwhile, farther behind, you can see Woodward and Tuck are continuing to battle. Now, Tuck has moved up into that 6th position, so those drivers are continuing to battle farther behind. But if these drivers up ahead start battling even more with the speed or lack thereof that Walters is showing right now, I think that battle between Woodward and Tuck might get disrupted. And if these drivers right here of Caruso and Phillips start battling even harder, I think this might turn into a massive fight here with 5 cars. So this will definitely be a thing that we have to keep our eye on in the final quarter of this race. We're 9 laps into this 12-lap affair here at Bathurst, and just it's such a great series that this has been. It's a great community and fantastic racing that we've had all year. It's a game of cat and mouse with some of these battles. I mentioned earlier how mind games can play a little bit of a role, and at a track like this where if you make any sort of mistake you are done for, the mind games play a little bit of a role. These drivers are talking to each other in race, possibly exchanging some not so correct terms, I can say, on the broadcast without getting into a world of trouble. But these drivers do have an immense amount of respect for each other. I heard plenty of good lucks being shown in the iRacing chat right before the start of this race, so it's nice to have a great community of iRacers here. And speaking of community, the schedule. We talked about this quite a lot last week. The schedule for season 1 is possibly coming out between here and next week's broadcast at Mosport. So that'll be something that we have to keep our eyes on. I beg the Radical community, keep Bathurst on the schedule. This is a great race, and even though it is a battle of attrition, as we see the number 14 driver exiting onto the pits, exiting out of the pits with a Radical that looks more like a NASCAR modified. This track has still lend itself to some pretty good racing over these past few seasons, and I hope to God that the Radical community keeps this track on the schedule.
Yeah, me as well, Ron. This has been fantastic. We were here last season, here this season. It's a great test of skills. It's kind of up there with the Green Hell in my view, in terms of the degree of difficulty and the pride that a driver can feel when he masters this very difficult and dangerous course. And there's somebody off right in front of the leaders there. They got through undamaged, but my goodness, that's Warren in a cloud of smoke there, approaching the top of the skyline. You never want to see that on this track, for reasons that were illustrated very vividly by the incident earlier with Barry. And here's Warren, if you're just trying to, oof.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's when courtesy will bite you. It looked like Warren there was just trying to be mindful of that blue flag and get out of the way of the leaders, moved over a little bit too far and off pace, got in the grass and turned it there, and fortunately did not collect anyone else in that little kerfuffle. And it looks
meanwhile, Carter Toole is in the pits. Yeah, now we've got some more action here with Walters and Phillips. So these drivers starting to battle as Caruso start to pull ahead. You can see that gap is now about 3 seconds separating Phillips and Caruso right now. So the battle has kind of shifted between Caruso and Phillips. Now it's Phillips and Walters here. Sorry to budge in there, JR, but there's a lot going on there just in a few moments.
Oh, it is absolute madness. And now Tuck, you can see in the back of the picture there, has reeled in Walters after his insane pass on Woodward into the cutting. I don't know if we got time to catch a quick peek at that. Maybe after the race is over, we can go back and take a look at that. But very ballsy to stuff one in there, turn 3 of the cutting, and that's where Tuck got past Woodward, and he's now looking forward at Phillips and watching that battle go back and forth. That's P4, 5, and 6 on the screen there. And what we can't see in this shot, of course, is Woodward is still right behind Tuck. So we got a little 4-car train developing here toward the front. Yeah, there's Woodward coming through Quarry Corner and into that very difficult area where we've seen a couple of guys smooch the wall here this afternoon. My goodness. And yeah, thank you, Josh. Josh is going to dial up Tuck, stuffing that Radical inside of the cutting. And this is just a mad move here.
It would appear that, at least from my perspective, the replay is a little glitched, so I'm just seeing some jittery look here. So we'll take a look at the broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, and if you want to see some more broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. We've got the late Apex coming up later today, so that'll be nice to hear about the world of sim racing. We've also got the S1 season finale. That'll be nice on Wednesday, and a broadcast that won't be on Apex is actually going to be on Make-A-Wish charity, the Make-A-Wish International page. That's going to be nice, and in a few days' time, that'll be a nice race for a good cause. I'm looking at the replay now with Tuck going into turn 2, just sneaking a wheel down the inside of Woodward, gets a move done very nice and smooth there as they went into turn 2. I have to look at the Apex broadcast to take a look at the replay, which was fairly smooth. A nice little replay there to see what was going on there, and a very nice textbook move there from Woodward.
Yeah, meanwhile, Tuck has got past Phillips and is now looking at Walters as Tuck working his way through this field like a hot knife through butter. He has gained 4 positions now up from his qualifying position and has picked up another one as he gets Walters entering turn 1. But can he make it stick? So far, so good. He's going to have the inside line up into the cutting. See if Walters wants to press him here under braking. And no, Tuck is going to get away. He's now up into P4, up 5 positions, putting on quite a show here. Ben Tuck, after qualifying in P10, he is now, see, what is that gap? About 4 seconds ahead to Caruso. Probably not going to make that up in the time remaining, but nonetheless, Tuck putting on an impressive drive here at the mountain.
He's putting in a very good drive right now. I think as a driver to make up the most positions right now, certainly been the one that we've kept our eyes on here, but it's definitely not going to be over yet. I'm sure we might see a little challenge here in the not too distant future, but I think the tempers will start to flare a little bit as we approach the end of this race. We're coming up on the final lap, and I believe Hurrick might take the white flag here in the not too distant future, but I think these drivers seeing the end of this race imminent, I think these drivers might start to break their elbows out a little bit. Meanwhile, Tuck is starting to pull ahead a little bit, so I think that battle might be cooling off, but I'm sure the battle between Walters and Phillips will definitely be heating up there. Right behind him, I say that, ooh, you can see the close, you can see the right there closing in there, going down the Conrad straightaway. It shows you how powerful the slipstream effect is with these radicals. Meanwhile, we've got Phillips and Walters battling, wasn't able to get the move done. Meanwhile, Woodward has entered the battle. You can see him going side by side with Walters there as they enter the final corner. Walters stays ahead for the time being, but I'm sure Woodward will try and look to find any way to get past Walters, get past his countrymen here in the final lap of this race. So there's plenty to play for here right now. I think Tuck has had a very good race, but right now I was going to say that he was going to get challenged by Phillips, but he made a mistake coming through Hill Corner, went very wide, and has now lost 2 positions. He's lost a position to Walters and Woodward, so Phillips is basically out of this fight now. Meanwhile, Walters and Woodward are going side by side, going into turn 2, very similar to, it's like a replay of what we had going into the final corner, and yet again Walters stays ahead. So I think Woodward might be feeling a little bit frustrated here, so we'll just have to wait and see how this battle plays out. It was a 4-car fight, now it's transpiring into a 2 between Woodward and Phillips for that final top 5 spot.
My goodness, and Phillips, what kind of a stunner there. He was driving so well, had just made an incredible pass there into the chase. I guess it was, it was Walters tried to cover the inside. Phillips got him around the outside. But, you know, sometimes, Ron, we see these tires start to go off on these radicals toward the end of the race. Phillips may have been asking too much of his tires, and it might have bitten him there at the end as he drops down from, he was up in P4, I think, there briefly, and has now dropped to 7 as we ride along with Woodward. And now we're going to take a ride along with Caruso now looking ahead to lap traffic. And then where are we now? We got back to Ben Tuck here now. He's got his position well in line with Walters, Woodward, and Phillips still dicing for that 6, 7, and 8 behind. Here's Woodward's going to try the outside here as Phillips did a moment ago, and unable to get that one done. Woodward maybe will take a peek. No, Walters is going to cover the inside again. Can Woodward get the move done around the outside? And that is going to be a no. And Herc has crossed the finish line after a dominant performance, followed by Larson, Caruso, Tuck, Walters, Woodward, Phillips. Kyriakopoulos is a ways back here now, about 10 seconds back to his position in P8. And he's going to get across the line. Gonzalez and Ianni will round out your top 10. And my goodness, that was an action-packed race, lots of passing, lots of battling in the mid-pack there as Herc sort of drove away. But what a show by Tuck, Walters, Woodward, and Phillips there in that 4, 5, 6, and 7 nonstop action. Those guys must have changed position about 10 times during that one. Fantastic race, everything that we expected out of these radicals and Map Panorama. Wow.
And I think even after dropping off of that battle, after the mistake that he had coming through 1, I think Phillips had a massive moment coming into the chase. I'm not sure if we'd be able to get a replay of that, but he was lapping a car and he clipped a wheel in the grass, and I think he had a massive wiggle that we just barely caught on our cameras while we were focusing on the battle between Walters and Woodward. We might get a look at it here. Thank you, Josh, here. There's actually the battle here with Woodward and Walters, so we'll take a look at this, and you can see the mistake there from Phillips. Yeah, just went a little bit wide. He made contact there, I believe, with Tuck coming through one, so that really screwed over Phillips there on that last lap of the race. But just it's unfortunate there, because I think he probably would have been able to get past Tuck, because those two were fairly even keel pace-wise. So I think it's a very frustrating way for Phillips' race to end. Certainly Tuck, I'm sure, is very happy of that mistake there that Phillips made, so he was able to finish this race in P4. But Phillips later on the lap will follow him throughout most of this lap there. It will have a nice view up ahead of the battle there with Woodward and Walters as they went side by side. He actually closed in on this battle a little bit there as he went through the first few corners here, but went a little bit wide, nearly made contact with a wall there. That shows you how bad the dirty air can affect these cars. It has a great straight line and slipstream effect, but definitely in those corners the dirty air bites really hard. So Phillips had a little bit of a wall scrape there, and I think after that he really dropped off of this fight until they get to the Conrad straightaway, and then we're gonna see him enter the chase. And oh my god, I think, and I thought I nearly pooped myself just watching that. That was a massive snap there that Phillips had there. Oh, you can see the contact that Walters made coming into Forrest Elbow there. Made contact there at the outside wall, and you can see the lapped car that these drivers have to negotiate with here. But riding on board with Phillips, going down the Conrad straightaway, doesn't really have the biggest straight line effect here, but he's still going to close in on that lapped car. He's going to go around the outside as they enter the chase here. You can see that lap car slows down, goes towards the outside. Ooh, and then goes into the grass. Oh, that is a massive snap there. And keep in mind, that's not happening at about 40 miles an hour. That's happening at about 160 miles an hour. So the fact that Phillips managed to hold on to that car without absolutely destroying it and also not having an accident in his pants is truly a miracle. But that was a fantastic onboard to see the battling there up ahead with Walters and Woodward, and also that massive snap there that Phillips had right towards the end of the race.
Wow, that was nuts, man. Oh my goodness. And Phillips, some great driving there. I totally missed that live, but Phillips put quite the show on there. And of course, we saw him wash out of Hell's Corner. And looking at that replay, Ben Tuck may have brake checked him a little bit there. He might have had some help in making that might not have been Phillips' error there, but yeah, what a fantastic show. And let's go ahead and look at your final results here from round 10 at Bathurst Mount Panorama here in the Radical Racing Challenge. Man, a fantastic race. As I need to get the correct screen up, and yeah, there he is, Philip Vanderhert, dominant. He dominated qualifying, blew the start a little bit, got beaten off the line, but managed to fight his way back into first position. As you can see there, wins by 3 seconds over Kieto Larson. Caruso, Tuck, and Walters around at your top 5. Then it's Woodward, Phillips, Kiriakopoulos, Gonzalez, and Ianni are your top 10. Mauricio Nunez will be in P11 there, sorry. Johnstone, Kraus, Aiken, Groot, Murata, Warren, and Toole will take you up to P18. And now we're getting down into the cars that binned and did not finish. Bogdan came back onto the track, missing a bunch of body panels briefly for reasons which are beyond me. Reagan will finish in 20. Marcus in P21. James Barry, our season leader, disappointingly in P22 after an early incident there. What was lap 1 or 2 when Barry clipped the wall and then just got annihilated by a car coming up behind. And in P23, Federico Manuela. So wow, that was fantastic race here. And folks, Apex Racing TV is not just about these radicals. We have some of the best esports drivers, some of the best cars, and some of the best tracks in the business 7 days a week. And coming up this weekend, we have 2 great esports events that you will want to take a look at. We have Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at the beautiful Phillip Island circuit, and Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors will be at Olton Park. That's Saturday and Sunday. And next week we'll start off strong, the Rickmatech World Challenge, that is mixed class racing, that will kick off our week of broadcast on Monday night. So excuse me, if you want to follow along with what we're doing here on Apex Racing TV, remember to subscribe and tick that notification icon so you don't miss any of the action here. And my goodness, so looking ahead, Ron, it looks like we have got Mosport and that is one of those tracks that is tailor-made for these radicals. Not a lot of low-speed stuff, a lot of high-speed sweepers that can take advantage of the aero, take advantage of the power and mechanical grip that these cars have. So what are you looking forward to out of these guys next week up in Canada?
Well, that is a very good question. As you said, this car is kind of tailor-made to that track. I think these drivers might be racing with a little bit less aggression than they did last season, because that was their season finale back earlier this year. So I think they might be racing a little bit easier, but I'm sure these drivers still aren't going to give each other many quarters when battling. So I think we'll see some awesome battling there in a week's time. And with the way that track is, I think there'll probably be some more battling there with the sweeping nature of that track. You have some corners that just, it's a nice track for battling. So I'm looking forward to that. And one thing I'm hoping for, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens, is possibly some more, a bigger field. I believe last season, I just took a look, we had 14 drivers racing there at Motorsport, so fingers crossed that the Radicals have drawn more attention this season, and that we'll have more drivers to talk about at Motorsport, because even though 14 cars, still pretty large field, it would be nice to have like 22 that we had here today, but maybe that's wishful thinking. I still think that we're in for an incredible race in 1 week's time at Motorsport. I'm sure looking forward to the season finale at the Nordschleife, at the regular slot that should have been. I don't know why the people decided to bring the Nordschleife to, I think it was round 4 last season. I'm happy it's the season finale again. We've got 2 awesome Radical races to look forward to, 2 awesome races, and hopefully 2 more awesome broadcasts to put here on Apex Racing TV.
Yeah, and you heard Ron, folks. Let's fill up that grid next week at Mosport. It's 2100 GMT. Give this Radical a try out there on Canadian Tire Mosport Park. You won't be sorry. It's a fantastic car, very well suited to that track. And, you know, who knows? You could be on the podium here on the Radical Racing Challenge on Apex Racing TV. So I think that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Friday. I am JR Gregory on behalf of Apex Racing TV, my partner Racing Ron Mons, and our friend and colleague Joshua Wilkie. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.